right, welcome to Ask Don't Tell. We have Whitney on the show, and I don't know if they're going to edit that out or not, Whitney, but we just literally couldn't hear each other for like 3 minutes. But that's how life goes, man. You know, you like the book behind you, Men Under Pressure. You get ready, you set up, you're here to go, and then everything falls apart. Is that life or what?
It is life. That is absolutely life. Yeah, Oscar, I can't tell you how grateful I am to be here on your show with you today. I have been looking forward to it, and thank you.
All right, awesome. So first of all, let's just get to know each other a little bit better, and for the audience to know where are you located?
I'm in Arizona. I'm in Tempe, Arizona. It's actually, I was born and raised in Arizona and have kind of lived my whole life on the southwest region of the U.S. But yeah, here with my wife, my 3 kids. We've got horses and chickens and a dog who's way too overweight, and just enjoying life here in the desert.
All right, well, so I'm in Colorado, and everyone in Colorado says maybe we should get a place in Arizona.
Yeah, well, I mean, I went. My wife is from
Well,
Arvada. My wife is from Arvada. That's where she was raised, and I went to dental school and orthodontic school there in Colorado. So I
wow.
love Colorado.
Wow, so you know how awesome it is in Colorado Springs and where we are, and
Oh
yeah, I
yeah,
mean Arizona is enticing during the I guess the winter, but we just have such great weather down here. I know people in Arizona, and right now it's hot.
it is hot. Yeah, I mean, we've been deep in triple digits for quite some time
Oh
now,
man.
and I mean, there's the perfect time to visit Arizona is not during these 3 months of the summer.
Oh
Otherwise, it's a great time to be here.
yeah, that's good stuff. All right, Whitney. So, why don't we start out with, I know we're going to dig deep into a lot of things, especially the book and the things that you're doing, and your past. I get it, but one of the first questions that I like, for our audience to get answered is why do people come to you for help? Like, what is the help? I come to Whitney for what?
That's a great question. So it used to be for braces. I mean, I was a practicing orthodontist, started this company in 2011. We now have 27 locations across 4 different states, including Colorado. And they used to come to me for help with, dental stuff, how to run a business and whatnot. And then once I started to be open about my journey with mental health and the experiences that I had, they started opening up on a much deeper level and asking me, how do I get my life back on track? Or how do I keep my life from falling off track? And that's the I want to say beauty of being open about mental health, especially amongst men, is because they don't have anywhere to go to. They don't have anyone that they can talk to about this. And when they find someone who's open about it, who's talking about it, who is actively preaching the importance of telling someone if you're struggling, then it's interesting to watch the floodgates open and just watch all these different dudes and their wives or their coworkers come out of the woodwork and say, what do I do to help to support this guy?
Oh wow! So I think a lot of ears just went. They're like, "Hey, I mean, if you're listening and you're a guy, you're like, oh wait, hold on, he might be saying something that I want to listen to." And if you're a woman, you're probably listening. Okay, I want to hear what this guy has to say. So this is good stuff. Before we get into that, kind of what I heard there is okay. So you were a doctor, an orthodontist, and kind of what I heard is that you were beyond a doctor. You were a business owner, really, because I think what you heard you say is you had different practices, which that takes you away from the realm of I'm just an orthodontist. I'm really a practice owner, and so you were actually able to kind of scale your ability to go and have different locations. It's kind of what I heard, or I don't know if you're talking about this current business, but here's my thought. During that process, I think that's where you discovered you had some mental health that needed to be. I don't know if it was employees' life. What is it that got you from what you were doing to this, I guess, realization that you had to work on yourself first, and then you uncovered, hey, maybe I can help others through this journey as well. I'd love to get the background on it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it started, and I mean, I'll just kind of start at the beginning. It started when I was young, and I went through some difficult things. There was some abuse issues that went on, and ultimately, unbeknownst to myself, I developed what's called toxic shame.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, Oscar, I thought that I was not enough. It didn't matter what I did, I was not enough. That there wasn't a problem with what I was doing, there was a problem with me. And then I also developed just some traumas there that developed into workaholism and an addiction to accolades and accomplishment and reaching the next level. And so for me, I always felt like it was just my drive. This was just who Whitney Wright was. He was just a winner. He was just a go-getter. But it turns out what was happening, and I didn't realize this until it was too late, was that I was addicted to the thrill of the chase of the next win. And so as I continued to stack win upon win throughout teenage years, early adulthood, and building this company, I didn't recognize the toll that it was taking on me. I was just blowing right past all of the red flags that were popping up in my life because I figured this is just what successful men deal with. You know, I was in 14 different practices in 5 years. I started over 7,000 orthodontic cases in those 5 years. That's equivalent to an entire career's worth of orthodontics. And I did that in 5 years. And the whole time I just thought to myself, I just need to push harder. When I was feeling depressed, I needed to push harder. When I was feeling anxious, I needed to just work harder, be more productive, and then that would solve the whole problem. And as the panic attacks started, as my body started to shut down with adrenal fatigue, I just erroneously thought I can just push harder and it will all be okay. And it wasn't until I was literally on the ground crying, vomiting during my panic attacks while I was seeing patients that I finally came to the realization that no, this is not going to be okay. And yes, I am a successful orthodontist. I'm a phenomenal entrepreneur, the co-founder of this big company, but in reality, I am broken. And if I don't get help soon, I might just end up dead. You know, that's kind of how it works for a lot of men, is they bury what it is that they're dealing with and going through so long that they just get to the end and they just say, there is nothing left for me. I'm completely out of hope. And so while I still had some hope left, I decided to turn it around, and it was because of the help of my psychiatrist, my therapist, my wife, my business partner, people who I had told that I was struggling, who then rallied behind me to say, Whitney, we want you better. Let's get you better. And that was the crux of it.
Wow. So let's stop there for a second, because I think that there's so much that you just said that, like, if you think about it in the real life, like, I look at you and I'm like, I mean, if I were just, oh, look at this guy. He's a good-looking, successful orthodontist, build the practice. But isn't that the reality? Like, I mean, what I heard is you've been an overachiever, super achiever, you know, elite your whole life, right? And people look at you and I don't know what you look like 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, but I mean, just from the outside, people just thought, like, this is success right here. This is what it looks like. But when you're talking to our audience, because this is who you're talking to, you're not talking to me, you're talking to the audience. I mean, think about how many people are there that are resonating what you're saying. I mean, whether they're, I mean, if I don't know if you watch any of the sports documentaries on Netflix. I mean, it's amazing how many super elite athletes have gone through mental health issues that, you know, you see them, you're like, well, this guy, and then you're like, well, no one wants to be this guy, right? And then how many, you know, salespeople, CEOs, business owners, you know, they, like you said, they think that the solution is to work harder, you know, the little hamster wheel. And then, I'm saying this because I'm bringing it down to earth to people that are listening and saying, oh my gosh, that's me, right? They're just on the hamster wheel and it's like work. But behind that, their family's suffering, their kids are suffering, their health is suffering, like you were going through, right? And how many CEOs out there or C-level execs are out there that this is what they think success looks like. They think that at the end of the day, everything else can suffer behind them. But as long as they get to a certain place and the world says that you're successful, that's what matters. But what you're saying, and here's what my point is, Whitney, you're saying that's not what's important. You're saying that at the end of the day, you were successful. But behind the scenes, you were going through some serious stuff and it could have killed you. So when we look at that past, how do you now grab that to something that you can teach to others? Like, what is the solution that you're providing to others? Is it like, hey, I can help you one-on-one, I've got a book, I've got a coaching program? Like, what is kind of the solution that you uncovered that now you're bringing to the world to help others solve this same thing that listeners right now are saying, man, that's me, so give me something, right? Give me something.
Sure. Success is a trap. And what I mean by that is the more successful you become, the more people depend on you. And the more people depend on you, the stronger you have to be as a leader, as a boss, as a CEO. And in order to be that powerful man, that powerful leader, you cannot show weakness. And it's because of that that you feel trapped, because you know that you're struggling, but you don't know what to do about it. And so when you find someone who has been there and who has done that and has gone through that experience, it's very alluring to want to learn what it is that they do. So yes, I do coaching. I do one-on-one coaching. I have written this book, the book Men Under Pressure, that you can see over my shoulder here. It is a great guide as a start of how to get your life back on track, how to recognize the red flags in your life, and how to start to reverse the damage that you have done to yourself as a powerful leader, man, a boss, who essentially can't let any chinks in the armor show. Because here's the issue, Oscar. If you are struggling as a man and you tell someone who is in your direct sphere of influence, let's say that you tell your wife and she's not ready to hear it yet. Well, now she's going to start to spiral, because she's going to start to wonder, well, is he still going to be able to be my provider? Is he still going to be able to take care of our family? Is he still going to be able to take care of me? And now she starts to spiral. And now me, as the one who's struggling, seeing this, my knee-jerk reaction is going to be, well, now I have to take care of her. And now I'm taking care of her and me, and it's even worse. If I tell one of my employees, the first thing they're thinking is this company going to go under? Am I going to be able to pay my rent? Am I going to be able to take care of my family? And now they're starting to struggle. So you have to tell someone that you're struggling. That's the first step. Tell someone. But what you have to do is make sure that you tell the right person, because you can't just tell anybody and you can't tell everybody. You have to tell the right someone. And that has to be someone who doesn't depend on you for finances, who doesn't depend on you for safety, security, provision, protection. It has to be someone outside of that realm of influence, such as a brother, a pastor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, someone who can hear that you're struggling and it will not affect their life, but they will understand that they can be a support to you. And so, yes, you have members in your audience, men who are dealing with this exact same thing, and they don't know what to do, and they're terrified, just like I was. What do I do? Who do I go to? Mm-hmm. And sadly, my employees saw me on the ground vomiting. They saw me, the CEO of the company saw me falling apart. I couldn't hide it. And I wish that I could have. I think that would have been so much better for me to have been able to heal quietly. But that was not an option for me. And my goal is to help men get to the point where they can heal quietly, they can heal on their own without letting anyone know. And then they can say to their wife, you know what, sweetheart, you might have seen that I was going through some difficult things in the past. And I just want you to know that I've been doing the work. I've been working on myself. I've been seeing people. I've been taking care of me because I love you. I love our family. And I want to do the very best that I can to make sure that I am a continual provider and I will never let you down. Same with my employees. And so, yes, the goal is tell someone. First and foremost, you've got to tell someone, because if you don't, the shame and the fear just builds inside of you. Yeah. And it just gets worse and worse. You have to drag it out into the light. And then once you've told someone, then you've got to start putting in the work. And then once you've started putting in the work, you've just got to stay the course. And it does get better. That's the thing that men have a hard time understanding, Oscar, is that it does get better. And there is hope. And it can reverse itself. And it's not difficult per se, but you have to put yourself first. And the process of a man putting himself first seems selfish. But I'll tell you, self-care is not selfish. And there's a reason. If you're on a plane with little children, they will tell you to put your mask on first if there's a pressure change in the cabin. Because if you're struggling to put their mask on and you pass out due to lack of oxygen, well, now you're no good to anybody. In fact, you're in the way. You're now a hindrance. You're a liability. But if you put your mask on first, make sure you taking care of yourself first, that you are the asset that is taking care of you, then everyone else around you will continue to be taken care of. And I feel
This
like I
is
just talked a whole bunch
no,
right
no,
there. I'm
no. This
sorry
is
about
good stuff.
that.
No, by the way, if this is called ask, don't tell. I ask, I let you tell because as you speak, you're not giving me the commercial. You're not giving me the pitch. You're giving me like you're talking from the heart. So I let you go. If I think that you're overdoing it, I have a, I'll I'll stop you. But that was amazing, and I'll tell you why. Because again, I grabbed what you just said and I just apply it in a way that some people can understand. I mean, because like for example, you mentioned, who can you tell? I mean, think about it. If you're a successful in anything, right? And this show is not about salespeople. This show's about humans, right? And yeah, there's a lot of salespeople, business people, professionals that listen to the show, whatever. But you're supposed to have this image, right? With your neighbors, at church, with your kids, with your wife, and like this is a real problem. People don't understand that because I have dealt with business owners, founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, athletes my whole life, and what I've realized is you pinned it. Who the heck do you talk to? Because a lot of the times we don't actually belong to in life. Most of us don't belong to a community of like-minded people that we can just go and say, hey, this is what's happening to me. I mean, you can't just a lot of times walk to your neighbor or to your employees or to even your family. They might be completely in a different walk of life. Even in your church, you might not have someone that understands what you're going through. So I've seen this over and over in my career, and what happens is you're right. People bottle it in, bottle it in, bottle it in. And what's unique with what you're saying, and I'm going to go out there for this one, you're basically saying what the world doesn't want to kind of admit, right? You're saying, hey, I'm sorry, I apologize to the women listening to this, right? I mean, but I as a man need to I'm not saying I need to be in control. It's almost gotten like I as a man need to fall behind and let the world, and what you're saying is no, you as a man, if you're successful, you need to be mentally correct because there's a lot of people, and it has been like that for a very long time that depend on your well-being, right? And you might be a support system. Even if you have a very successful wife, maybe you're the one that's the support system at home, but you need to be right. And unless you're right and unless you love yourself, you are going to have a hard time leading and loving others. So I just think that there's a lot of people listening that are saying, Whitney, like, I get it. Like, I get it because you really are speaking to people out there that can't get help, don't know how to get help, and then they just bottle in. Maybe they can't sleep at night. So here's the thing. What are some of those? Because some people are listening and says, oh, that's not me. That's not me. No, I'm successful. Yeah, that's for someone else, right? They haven't. So what are some of those like symptoms, those mental symptoms? Because when they become physical, like when you're vomiting on the floor in front of your employees, you've gone way too far. It's almost like you've gone too late, right? And there's always help for you. But what are some of those symptoms right now that if somebody's listening to this, okay, I hear what he's saying and I've got some of this, like maybe it's addiction, maybe it's not sleeping at night, maybe it's not taking care of yourself, maybe what are some of those symptoms that you kind of started seeing at the beginning that could help the audience say, oh my gosh, wait, I need to listen. I need to read that book. I need to reach out because I'm starting to see this in my life.
I appreciate that question because I think that is the heart of it is how do I recognize these issues in myself? Or for your female listeners, because my book isn't just for men, it's for those who love men, who support men, who want to help men. And if you're recognizing some of these symptoms, these are absolutely the red flags that I'm talking about. Number one, dread. There was a point in time when I was driving to my offices and I was just filled with dread. I'd be crying on my way to work, knowing that there was a dumpster fire waiting for me. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know when it was going to go off, but I knew that I was going to have to handle it and then continue to see the 100 patients that I was scheduled to see that day. So dread is a big one. Coping mechanisms. Men will bury themselves in their coping mechanisms just to continue to move forward, whether that's drinking, smoking, if that's drugs, if that's gambling, pornography, it could be eating. For me, it was eating. I was really big into caloric coping is what I called it. And so, I mean, me and Tony the Tiger, we had a relationship that was unhealthy, and I was eating so much cereal. I mean, it was ridiculous. And
Working, and I don't mean to, but I think there's a very important one to say: workaholic. Working and working and working and working and working is a coping mechanism that people don't understand. That everything in your life will suffer if you overdo it. Right. So keep going. I don't want to interrupt you.
yeah, no, and that's another thing. So to go a little bit further into my story, it got to the point where my psychiatrist said to me, I had a massive panic attack in one of our directors' meetings. And she'd been working with me for 2 years, medicating me, helping me kind of limp by. And she saw the trajectory that I was on. And she says, Whitney, I will no longer be complicit in this behavior, because right now you're having panic attacks, and pretty soon it will become heart attacks and you will die. Your body will shut you down. And so I will refuse to see you, because I will not be complicit in your death. I refuse to see you unless you check yourself into a 30-day facility to get yourself better. And as soon as she said it, I knew she was right. I knew she was right. And so I came home, I told my wife, this is what I needed to do. One of the most difficult conversations I've ever had to do in my entire life, Oscar, was to look at my 3 little kids and say to them, I have to go away for a month because I'm not doing great. And just to see the fear on their faces. And that's the point that I got to. And once I was inside of this facility, all sorts of different realizations started to take shape. They said to me, Whitney, you're a workaholic. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just a type A personality. They said, why don't you take this test that we have and then see? And I 100% was a workaholic. And that was such I couldn't even believe it. Like, what do you mean I'm a workaholic? No, I'm just Whitney Wright, and then I learned about the depression that I was dealing with, the PTSD that I was dealing with, all of these different issues. And let's go back to one of the red flags. If you feel like it doesn't matter what you're doing in your life, you cannot seem to regain your energy, you can't seem to regain your happiness, if it almost feels like you're trying to fill a bucket full of holes, that's what I explained depression feels like. It might not be the fact that, you can get out of bed, you could be highly productive and still be severely depressed. But if it feels like you just are continually drained, that is a very significant symptom of depression. If you always feel like you are in a high state of agitation and always thinking to yourself, something is about to go wrong, that's anxiety. If you feel like nothing you do seems to matter and you can't ever recharge your batteries, that looks like adrenal fatigue. And so if you are coping with different things to feel, to reduce the numbness, then you're dealing with potentially an addiction. Because what people don't understand is that their coping mechanisms can turn into addictions. I just smoke a little bit of weed at night. I don't do drugs, but this is someone, says, I just smoke a little bit of weed, or I just do a little bit of meth just to chill out. And then eventually a little bit becomes more and more and more, and your coping mechanism turns into an addiction. And when you have the addiction, that takes over your life. And you think that your life was bad before, now it's even worse, and the spiral just accelerates even faster and faster. And you're on your way to losing your career, you're on your way to losing your family, and all of these things. And that's because you allowed your coping mechanism to become an addiction. And so, and that is the spiral to which men end up ending their lives. And so there are these red flags. I do point them out in my book. I do try to talk about them openly, very, very clearly, because you can't mince words in this realm. You have to be direct, because this is real life. These are lives on the line, not just yours, but your families, your employees, your shareholders, everyone who depends on you are hoping that you take care of yourself and that you put in the work to make sure that you continue to function, because they trust you, they love you, they depend on you. And you, as a man, owe it to yourself and to those who depend on you to continue being strong and healthy and moving forward in a way that allows you to continue to stay solid.
Right. So, first of all, the title of your book, Men Under Pressure, like, unless you're listening to this conversation, a lot of the people that are listening to this are probably I mean, are probably men who are in business, are in sales. Maybe some of them, their coping mechanism is money. Like if I work harder, if I make more sales, if I make more commissions, I make more money, I buy more things, and it's just a cycle, right? Where they're going to drive themselves, absolutely nuts. Um, and so you're right. There's all sorts of mechanisms that aren't just drugs and alcohol and the things that we would think is taboo, but there are, like you said, for you it was calories, and one of the things that stands out to me is like it's called Men Under Pressure, but you're not like most people say. Well, is he promoting like the manosphere? Have you ever seen that on Netflix where it's like all like life is men and men are superior, men are this? No, you're just saying that you got to get yourself right to have balance in your life. Otherwise, everything loses balance. Like you may look like you're being successful, but everything in your life has no balance. So in order to fix that, there has to be a solution, right? So, I always say, and if you're listening, or you told me that you've done sales, I mean, I'm sure you've done a million sales before because that's what, you have a very personality, but like, I always say, okay, we've identified what the problem is, right? So if you're selling anything, if you're a business, you're a professional, you're saying, okay, I know there's a problem that I'm trying to solve. But Whitney, there's different ways to solve that problem, right? I mean, you can buy an online course. You can find coping mechanisms. You can go to your local church. You can hire a one-on-one coach. You can try to get ChatGPT to help you. I mean, there's different ways to solve, or at least attempt to solve that solution or that problem. If you're saying, oh wow, what Whitney's saying is true, I got to get help. So I guess my question is, what is, in your book or in your coaching or in your teaching or whatever it is that you're doing, what is kind of that solution? Not the help that you're providing, not who Whitney is. You see what I'm saying here, like what I'm doing here, like when you're offering anything to the world, it isn't just like, hey, this is who I am. We know who Whitney is. I mean, it's clear that you lived through this. It's clear that you know what the heck you're talking about. It's clear that you are the one I need to go to if I'm struggling because you were there. And it's clear now, for example, all right, maybe I need some help. But why would I come to you? What separates what you're teaching or what's that process that you're taking your people through that is just the solution or different, or maybe it's the same, but what is it that you are helping him take? When you answer this, if you're listening, this is a lot of times where people fail as business owners, salespeople, entrepreneur. They said, hey, I can help you do this. I'm an orthodontist. I'm a great orthodontist, but I haven't answered why my solution is different than others or what it is that I do differently. So Whitney, that's basically what I want you to do for our audience, so that they can say, okay, what Whitney's doing makes sense. I want to reach out.
I was in my when I was in my facility for 30 days, there was people there that were drug addicts, that were abuse survivors, that were dealing with myriad of issues. And when I went in there as the mindset of, I want to do the very best I can do while I'm in here, and even kind of tackle this like I was a student and just learn as much as I can while I'm here. And it didn't matter who was there for what problem. It always boiled down to the same thing. And the same thing was previous trauma. Now, when we experience trauma, our defense mechanisms, our mental defense mechanisms. In fact, let me back up a little bit and let me explain how our brain works. So, Oscar, when you're going throughout your day, you're driving your car, you're eating a meal, whatever. So information comes in through your prefrontal cortex. It goes into your brain and it bounces back and forth across the midline of your brain, and then it processes back, and then it either gets stored as a memory or it's just white noise. But if you are experiencing something traumatic, something that is too much for you to handle, and your body is in the potential risk of going into, there's three stages of fight or flight. There's flight, there's fight, and then there's freeze. If you've ever, I mean, you're in the Rockies, right? I mean, you've driven and you've encountered a deer in the road, and it's just staring at you. They're frozen. That's the freeze state. And so if we as humans enter the freeze state, we're going to die. If it's a bear coming after us, if we hit the freeze state, we die. And so there's a defense mechanism in our brains that if there's a traumatic experience going on, that it'll come in through the prefrontal cortex. It'll bounce around a couple of times. Sirens will go off and say, this is too traumatic for us to deal with right now. We're going to just hold on to this right here and not try to process it and allow Whitney to either run away or fight or whatever he needs to do. But I'm not going to let him freeze. I'm going to lock this up. And that is something that our brains have learned to do over, the evolution of man. And so then what happens is we have these traumatic experiences that are locked up in our brains, and our brains kind of create this cocoon around them. And I call them trauma nuggets, and they live in our brains. And one of the things that I do, to get back to your answer, is I help people identify trauma from their past. And one of the ways that I do that is I ask, did you go through something? Did you experience something when you were younger that you wouldn't want your kids to experience? Whether that was a violent experience, you witnessed something, someone said something to you, a coach called you fat, it's just something that you would not want your own children to go through. Chances are that is traumatic. And when you have these trauma nuggets, they're encapsulated, they're tucked away, but eventually they become an abscess. And an abscess is a buried infection that doesn't have a way to get out. And it starts to release these toxins. It starts to release these symptoms that there is something wrong. And so if you have trauma nuggets buried in your head, and there's tons of science on this, that it will start to release these signals of depression, anxiety. It will start to do PTSD. These are what cause those symptoms. It's your brain saying there is something lodged in here that is not able to get better, and I don't know how to tell you other than to send you these signals. And so trauma is the number one reason why men and women have these mental issues. And so my goal is to help people recognize that they have this trauma and then steer them towards the professionals that will help them remove these trauma experiences. Because if I'm working on you with your addiction, if I'm working on you with your workaholism, if I'm working with you on all of these different things, the chances are I'm just working on the symptoms and not the actual problem. If I can get to the problem, if I can get to the root of what it is that you're dealing with, then the chances of you healing go up exponentially. Otherwise, I'm just putting Band-Aids on this. And so what I offer is an ability to look deeper, not to here are the red flags that I'm seeing, but here's why I'm seeing these red flags. Here's why I'm dealing with this. And then helping you to recover from that and recognizing that, hey, it gets better. These can go away. Like I can process this and become whole again and not feel like there is a massive black hole in my soul that it doesn't matter what I throw at it, I never feel complete. And so I feel like that was a really long answer to the question of what can I do? And what I do is I help you heal from the inside out versus just try to throw platitudes at you and just little snippets and this and that. Like my goal is to heal the human.
So let me ask you this. That's valuable stuff, because I mean, if someone's listening, they're either saying, "Oh my gosh, okay, that resonates because I know I'm a listener. I know I have the trauma. I've always had the trauma. I know I had the trauma. I've hidden the trauma my whole life. No one knows about it." And what you're saying is you go in, and unless you're the one they're going to talk to, and you're going to find out, and you're going to dig deep, and you're going to ask, you're going to use ask, don't tell. You're going to literally ask them the right questions to dig deep into what they're doing. And I don't want to go in there because I go into that in other shows. It's like, Whitney, there's no way that you can do that unless you're a superstar at asking questions, because people have to reveal to you their worst traumas, right? So you probably are a pro asking questions, and we can get into that in a second. But
yeah, and the thing is I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. My goal isn't to heal you from those personally. My goal is to direct you to the people who are trained to do that, because it is a process. It right. is a real process. I go into it in my book because the way that my book is laid out is it's kind of a crawl, walk, run, depending on where you are in your journey. If you're kind of just starting to struggle, here's some answers. If you're really struggling, here's some answers. If you are rock bottom, here are some answers. And it's that rock bottom that really goes into the deep healing procedures that I had to go through. And I think, honestly, Oscar, everyone is
Are,
dealing with something like this.
are there people that are struggling? They would classify as the men under pressure. They're going through some of this stuff, but they don't know that they have a trauma or they had a trauma. And like, it's like, well, do you have a trauma? They say, well, not really. But can they actually have a trauma? Like, that's actually a question that comes to mind, because somebody might be listening and saying, well, how do I know if that was really a trauma that's been affecting me? Like, how do I know that, that wasn't, I mean, maybe that wasn't a big deal, but maybe that is causing me to do things that I'm not even aware of. Is that a reality? Is that kind of something that the book would help people understand,
Yeah.
what actually is a trauma that's causing certain actions, but they don't really know that they have the trauma? I don't know if that's making sense.
Yes. And that's just it, is a lot of people think that they're dealing with, that their issue is the symptoms that they're seeing. But that's not the true issue. The issue is the trauma that was never processed and that your brain is still holding on to as a defense mechanism. And until you're able to dislodge that and let it process and then move through, it will continue to give you issues and problems. And I met people in my facility who were in rehab for the 5th time, the 6th time, and they continue to relapse and they continue to have all of these issues. And the reason is because they were dealing with the symptoms and they weren't actually going after the problem. And when I saw them go after the problem, that's when I saw true healing. And so, like I said, if you have something in your past that you're not quite sure if maybe this is affecting me, chances are it is. And one of the things that a good therapist will do is they'll go through what's called somatic experiences, or asking you. And so, like, let's say, for example, that you, Oscar, saw a terrible car crash when you were young and you watched someone die in this violent car crash that you saw right in front of you. And you think to yourself, that could have been a traumatic experience, but I think I'm okay. And then you start talking to it with a therapist, and all of a sudden, as you're talking, you feel this nasty pit in your stomach and you feel nauseous and you're not exactly sure what's going on. And they're asking you, where do you feel that? And you say, I feel that in my stomach. And that right there tells you that it is still affecting you, that it's still inside of you. And so they can help you recognize that, yeah, this is still in there. And if it happened when you were young, our brains are not cognitively capable of recognizing and processing trauma until we're in our 20s. And I mean, our prefrontal cortexes don't develop until we're in our 20s. And so our brains don't recognize what it is that we're going through. And we just think to ourselves, oh, I just had a rough childhood, or I just had a rough experience. But that's just our brain saying, that's another protective mechanism saying, I'm not broken. It's okay. Let's keep going forward. It's better that we go forward broken than we don't go forward at all. And so that's one of the things, is you have to start seeing someone who can help you identify whether or not you do have these issues going on, because otherwise your brain will convince yourself that you're not broken. It's
one of the things that I've learned over, and here's the thing that why this is so useful and so general. Like, people, when they hear this, oh, well, honestly, that's not me. Oh, that's for crazy people. That's not me. I'm successful. But here's the thing, like, okay, so I'm 50 years old. Like, I've been around like very successful leaders, entrepreneurs my whole life, right? Like, like I would say that I have a very successful a network of really just rock stars. And I'll tell you, they're all crazy. They're all crazy. I mean, the reality is that people that are successful in life, people that are the ones overachieving, people that are the ones that they're like, dude, that guy's out there, but he's so successful. That dude, he's got his private jet, but man, he's, when you dig deep, the reason they are successful, and if you're listening, the reason that you are successful, the reason that you probably climbed the corporate ladder, the reason why you are overworking, the reason why you've built, 50 million is because you're probably not normal. Right? And so I've realized that if you look at any Netflix story of famous people or professional athletes, I mean, they just came from just a different life, a different world. And it's actually those traumas that actually became their superpower to help them be really successful, but they never got rid of the trauma, which ends up later on the reason why, of their demise. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, Whitney, you've described something that I think a lot of people that are listening can say, you know what, they've kind of brought this down to earth. And I do have an issue. I need to accept it. I need to admit it because I may be successful, but guess what? It isn't just success in business, sales, company. It's success in life. In this show, we talk about human skills. We talk about balance. We talk about, asking, connecting with people. We talk about building rapport. We talk about, how having people like you. And you can't do that if you're falling apart inside. You just can't. You can't succeed in the ask, don't tell. Eventually, everything else will suffer. So I think it's clear to our audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna let you get. I think it's clear to our audience what their situation is, right? I think there's a lot of people saying, okay, what do I need to do today? So that's the question I have for you. What can people do today? Like today. And in Ask, Don't Tell, closing it, I talk about the why today. What can people do today? What do you want our audience to do today, to start that journey to get some help? Is it reaching out to you? Is it reading your book? Is it talking to someone? What is the thing the action step that our audience can take today?
First and foremost, tell someone.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell one person that you're not doing great. And you will be surprised at the amount of pressure that relieves, the amount of guilt and fear that takes out of you, just telling one person that you're not doing great. We have people all the time, hey, Oscar, how are you? How are you, dude? How are you doing today?
And the answer is always, man. Hey, we just went to Hawaii. It was so awesome. Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it couldn't be better. Now, if you were to take a moment and determine that you were actually going to be honest, and you had a friend who said to you, Oscar, how are you doing today? And you looked at them and you said, you know what? To be honest, I'm not doing great.
Wow.
I'm not doing great. That moment will be the turning point of your entire life, because you will now, that person, your friend, whoever it is that you're talking to, will now lean in and they'll say, I had no idea. Do you want to talk to me about it? Like, are you okay? And that is a trigger for them to lean in. They'll either lean in and want to help you, or they will be too uncomfortable and push it away. And they'll say, oh man, I'm sorry. I hope it gets better for you. And now you have learned whether or not you have found the person that you can talk to about this. Now, you're not going to ask them to save you. You're just going to want them to hear you out. You don't expect them to solve this for you, but you're going to say, I'm not doing well. And maybe it's, then you say, I'm not sleeping great at night, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. Or I feel like I'm drinking too much, or whatever it is. But number one thing you have to do is tell someone. And once you've done that and realize that you don't have to carry this alone, now you want to start getting some tools. That's what I recommend. My book, you can listen to it. I recorded it on Audible. If you like my voice, great. If you don't, I'm sorry. But there's an ebook. I mean, I've got all sorts of different ways that you can hear this book, but it's written. There's a lot of good humor in there, but essentially it is full of tools of not just myself, but I have 12 other men that I have in there, their stories, their examples, and what they did and what they were going through. And once you tell someone, and then you start to recognize that there is this issue, and you're saying, what can I do today? Today, you can sit back and just 5 minutes, you can think to yourself, how am I really doing? How am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I full of fear? Do I feel like I'm always on the edge of losing it? Do I feel like I am no longer the strong, powerful leader that I once was, but now I'm just kind of barely holding it together? You can do some self-reflection and recognize where you're at. And if you recognize that you're on a downward trajectory, that is your sign. That is your sign that you need to start now, because it only gets worse. And there are things that you can do, simple things that will start to reverse that trajectory. And my goal, my wish, Oscar, is that no one ever has to go through what I went through, ever. I don't care whoever you are, please do not get to where I was. It is dark, and it is, it's a place I don't want anyone to go. And so, yeah, I am a successful man. That's because I put in the work to become successful after the success, if that makes sense. Like as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, I recognized that I was on the verge of absolute self-destruction. And it was because of my love and my respect and my desire to continue to be the man, the protector, the provider for the people that I loved, that I threw myself into healing. And that made all the difference. And so is it scary? Absolutely. Is it a road that you're not sure where it will lead? Of course. But in the end, as long as you're working on yourself, it's going to lead to a great place. And so if you have listeners right now who are wondering, what is the next step I can take? Tell someone. And then, I don't know what else to get my book. I don't know what else to say.
No, so there's so many great concepts there on to kind of ask, like the just the name of the show, Ask Don't Tell. So listen to some of the things that you said that I just want to like make sure that we don't miss. One, okay, tell someone, right? So if you are listening, and we live in a tell world, so if you tell someone and that person just starts telling you, like you said, tidbits, why don't you do this, and why don't you do this, and why don't you do this, and they don't take the time to not tell you what you're supposed to do and how you're going to fix yourself, and they don't truly ask, hey, well, tell me a little bit about what you're going to. You know what? They're probably not the person that's going to help you, or they're probably not the person that you need to be going to, because they're actually talking because they're uncomfortable. Someone that really cares, and you do this, and this is, and if we need to apply this to clients, or if we need to apply this to business, we're going to apply this to sales, shut up and listen and take the time. And when somebody tells you what's important to them, take the time and ask, well, tell me a little bit more about that. Well, why, okay, hey man, I heard what you're saying. Hey, if you don't mind, could you tell me a little bit more about what you're going through? Hey man, I'm here to listen. I don't know if I can help you. If I can, I will, but I'd love to hear more about why you're telling me that you're not doing okay. That's the power of Ask Don't Tell. That's the power of human skills and actually getting people to do that. So if you do that today, find someone that'll listen, not tell you kind of just, hey, go do this, because the right person is probably someone that's going to listen. So that I wanted to say. The other thing that I thought was very powerful that you mentioned was, we tell ourselves stuff all the time. I'm successful. This is the way it's supposed to be. Everybody goes through this. Again, you're living in a tell world. You're telling your mind, and you're trying to convince yourself what it is that you need. But ask, don't tell. Ask yourself. You said some very great principles. Every morning, those people that know me know that I sit down 30 minutes in my couch in my basement. I'm a Christian. I read the Bible. I reflect, and I try to ask myself the questions of I don't sit there and I listen and say, okay, what is God, or what is the world telling me? What do I need to know? But what you're doing is, regardless of your beliefs, you're asking. You're not telling yourself. You're not sitting there and saying, I'm great, I'm awesome, I'm going to do so. You're asking. So really, take what you said is so gold. Take the time to ask yourself those questions about your own life. That was huge, Whitney. And finally, just a personal story. I actually went through some of this. So I have a friend who plays tennis with me he's very successful. He's got a very successful therapist who owns a thing called the Rock Your Family in Colorado Springs. He's my friend. He's a very good friend. And we've been struggling with some things with our daughter. Just some attitudes, some just things that we've been seeing. And I approached him and I did exactly, hey man, I'm struggling with this with my daughter. And she's 7, And he just started asking me questions. Tell me a little bit more. What is it? And then he did exactly what you said, which is why I'm bringing this up. He didn't try to give me a bunch of tidbits. He didn't say, oh, go read this. He said, look, he identified the issue. Just like you're identifying, hey, he said, look, you basically have an entitled, spoiled kid. This kid is going through entitlements. And if you don't fix this, she has everything, right? If you don't fix this is what's going to, so let me point you. He didn't say, come to me for therapy. He said, let me point you in the right direction of some things that you can do. He gave me a couple things that we could do today, and we did them. And I've already seen the result. It's like a different child within a week. So that's what I'm trying to get people to understand, that it isn't that you have to feel like you're crazy or at the end. You can just get help and go to someone that listens And one thing that they tell you, or one place that they point you, or one book that you read can change your entire life. And I think, Whitney, that's what you're trying to do. I really think that that's what you're trying to do. I can see it in your heart, and I love that you're trying to do it. So what do you want to, do you want to have any final words for our audience before we close down the podcast? I think this has been phenomenal. I think there's people that are literally going to change their lives today because of this podcast.
Well, thank you. The final message that I have for your audience, and I'm grateful that they would even tune in and listen to what it is that I have to say. But the thing that I have to say is that it gets better. If you're struggling, it doesn't matter where you are in that struggle. It can get better. It will get better. As long as you're breathing, it can get better. And you just have to start taking some small steps and believe that it will get better. There was a point in my time where I was terrified, Oscar, that I thought to myself, well, what if I go through all of this? What if I go through all of this therapy, all of these different things, and it doesn't get better? And then I thought, well, I know it won't get better if I don't even try. And I had to lean into the fact that the only way it was possibly going to get better was if I started trying. And so that's my message. Just start trying. Tell someone, read the book, do some self-reflection, recognize whether or not you are using coping mechanisms to keep pushing yourself forward because you feel so empty, if you're irritable all the time, if you just don't recognize yourself anymore. There was a time when I knew that Whitney Wright was buried in there somewhere, but I couldn't get to him. I felt like there was a wall between me and him, and I didn't know what to do. And it was just starting, telling someone, starting to read. You can read my book, but just start and believe it will get better. It does get better. And that is my promise.
Awesome. So, a very wise man once told me, if you do nothing, nothing will happen. If you do nothing, nothing will happen. All that will happen was the same that you're at. So basically, I love it. Hey, Whitney, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you for being on the show. I think that, every one of these episodes of Ask Don't Tell is different. Sometimes about sales, sometimes about business. But honestly, this is one of those episodes that I've actually kept going longer than most, because I think that there's a lot of people that listen to this that are very successful and are struggling with some of this stuff, right? I mean, I would tell you, I'm crazy. That's why
No. But here's the thing. I'd say at least 50% of the men that you know are struggling with this, and they can't tell anyone. They're too scared.
Yeah,
this affects, I guarantee every one of your listeners knows a man who is struggling deeply, but that they don't know because the man doesn't know how to express that or tell someone. This affects everyone.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it here on Ask Don't Tell. If you want to know more, please reach out to Whitney Wright. Look for his book, Men Under Pressure. Pick up a copy. I'm sure we'll get people to doing that immediately. And if you want to know, keep listening to Ask Don't Tell. Remember, Ask Don't Tell. You can reach out to me also on OscarSubrats.com, ClosingIntelligence.com. Pick up a copy of my book, How to Get Others to Say Yes in Life and Business, or just keep listening to the show. This has been great. Whitney, stay on the line so that we can just have a quick chat before we have to go. And thank you for being on the show again.